international webinar Wave of Readiness Strengthening Emergency Response Together, a part of the Road of International Jamboree 2025. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Shiva Sofistika, and I'm truly honored to serve as your Master of Ceremony for today's event. This webinar is proudly organized by the Faculty of Medicine, Jenderal Ahmad Yani University, bringing together distinguished experts and participants from diverse fields and strengthen our knowledge, capacity, and collaboration in disaster preparedness and emergency response. Before we begin, I would like to kindly remind everyone to turn on your camera if possible, keep your microphone mute during the session, fill out the attendance link shared in the chat box, and also don't forget to complete the final attendance form at the end to receive your certificate. We hope this webinar will broaden our understanding and encourage meaningful discussion on how we can respond more effectively to future emergency. To officially open our event, let us honor our nation by singing Indonesia Raya, followed by Mars of Unjani. Please join us in singing together, please.
Di bawah naungan Pancasila Sakti, kau bina kesadaran yang berdiri, dijiwai semangat revolusi, kau pengemban aspirasi tulus dan murni, bertanggung jawab pada tujuan suci, mengamalkan tridharma perguruan tinggi, kau wadah kami berdepan diri, memenuhi panggilan janji bakti. Engkau kan ku merasa pencuci warga demi tegak di bumi Indonesia, tegak selamanya amanat dan cinta, gemilang namamu sepanjang masa, megah kibaran sang saka merah putih, menyertai langkah perwiramu dan sejati, harum ke seluruh panjang kesurupan juru bumi, hidup Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani.
Thank you very much, everyone. Now, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Bagus Cahyono, PH, as the chairman of today's event to deliver his welcoming remarks. Dr. Bagus, the screen is yours.
Uh, Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Unjani, who is represented by Vice Dean for Student and Cooperation. Respected speakers and speakers from Australia, Dr. Daniel McAvoy, Dr. Jonathan Lassa, webinar participants, ladies and gentlemen. Let us be grateful to be able to meet at this international webinar, which is part of the International Jamboree series. The topics and materials presented by the speakers are selected and aligned with the objective of the International Jamboree. Therefore, this webinar will be beneficial for improving our knowledge and insight. We hope this webinar runs smoothly and is beneficial for all of us. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Bagus, for your inspiring and encouraging message. Next, we are honored to welcome the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Wendra. But unfortunately, Dr. Wendra is unable to join with us today, which we really regret. However, we are pleased to have Dr. Welly, the Vice Dean 3 of the Faculty of Medicine, General Ahmad Yani University, who will kindly deliver the Dean's remarks on his field. Dr. Welly, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Shiva. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, our honorable speakers, Dr. Bagus Cahyono, lecturer from General Ahmad Yani University, and also disaster management practitioners, and also chairman for this wonderful event, and then Dr. Daniel McAvoy from Deakin University, Dr. Berton Suata Pelita Panjaitan from BNPB, and also our lecturer in Unjani. And then we have Insinyur Evi Apriyanti, PhD from Universitas Hasanuddin, Dr. Jonathan Alasta from Charles Darwin University, and Professor Dr. Irwan Melano from Institut Teknologi Bandung. Ladies and gentlemen, and also our distinguished speakers and honored participants, on behalf of the Dean of Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this international webinar. We are also grateful for your presence and participation today. And as you know, this event is a part of the International Jamboree Emergency Medicine and Disaster held in celebration in anniversary of our faculty. It reflects our commitment to strengthening education, research, and community services in field of disaster and preparedness. Today, in this webinar, we hope we can increase our awareness of disaster risk and promote effectiveness mitigation strategies, and also encourage closer cooperation between institutions and communities. So we hope with this wonderful webinar, we can share knowledge and also collaboration that are key to reducing the impact of disaster. In this event, I would like to express our appreciation to our distinguished speakers for sharing their expertise and also for organizing committee for their dedication in preparing this program. And also, I would like to thank to all participants who would like to join us today. We wish you an insightful session, and I hope it will be increase our knowledge about disaster management. That's all, I think. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Relly, for your kind and motivating message. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to our keynote speech. It is great privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Daniel McAvoy, MA, who will present on resilient region, what we are learning from rural communities in Australia about how to better prepare, respond, and recover from disaster. Before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce Dr. Daniel McAvoy, MA. Dr. McAvoy is a researcher and lecturer at Deakin University, Australia, with extensive expertise in humanitarian leadership, community resilience, and disaster management. He has been actively involved in research and capacity building projects, focusing on how communities prepare for, respond to, and recover from disaster, particularly in rural and regional areas. Through his work, Dr. McAvoy aims to strengthen collaboration between government, NGOs, and local communities to build more inclusive and sustainable approach to emergency response. His insights have guided numerous international initiatives in the Asia-Pacific region. We are truly honored to have him share his knowledge and experience with us today. Good morning, Dr. McAvoy.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, it must still be morning there in Australia, right?
No, other way around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, here in Indonesia, it's
almost,
already, yeah.
almost dinner time.
Oh,
So, selamat pagi.
selamat,
Can I share my screen?
selamat siang, actually.
Oh, siang.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us despite the time difference, and we deeply appreciate your presence and contribution today. And now we kindly invite you to deliver your presentation. So, Dr. McAvoy, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Just one moment while oh, somebody's already sharing, so they need to stop sharing. Oh no, that's good. Yeah. Can you see that okay now?
Yeah, it's all clear.
Fantastic. Great. So thank you. Selamat siang. Saya Dr. Dan McAvoy from Deakin University. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. Dr. Wendra, understand is not here, but the Dean of the Unjani Medical Faculty, Dr. Bagus, my fellow speakers and honored guests. Terima kasih for the honor of being asked to talk to you about my research, which touches on the topics of climate change, disasters, community resilience, and the role of business in helping communities to prepare and recover from climate disasters. To begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country from which I join you. Long before white settlers came to Australia in 1788, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation were the custodians of the lands southeast of Melbourne. This is where I live today and where Deakin University Burwood campus is located. The wisdom and traditional knowledge of Australia's First Nation peoples has been important in managing disaster risk for more than 60,000 years, maybe 100,000. We're still learning how deep and how valuable that knowledge is. At Deakin University, I am the course director of a master's course in humanitarianism and development. The course touches on topics related to disasters, humanitarian action, and international development. I'm very pleased to see that one of my students is here in the audience today, a student from Indonesia who's achieved an Australian Award scholarship and found his way to Deakin. Thank you for coming, Aceh. Um, as part of our sort of teaching, we are very focused within this degree to not take a top-down approach to learning about disasters, international development, and humanitarianism. It's much more focused on community development and looking at a community development lens for the way that we think about disasters. Um, and that's also an important theme in the research that myself and some of my colleagues at Deakin University are doing. I hope you might find something useful in my talk this afternoon. But I must recognize that Indonesia is already one of the world leaders when it comes to disasters. Um, in fact, if there was a gold medal awarded to the country, or if if it was an Olympics for having disasters, then we know Indonesia would be definitely in the medal tally very high up for having the most disasters, but also would be getting potentially the gold medal for how effective your responses to disasters have become in the last 20 or 30 years. And before I talk about my current research in Australian communities, I wanted to say how happy I am to be talking to practitioners, academics, and students at Unjani University. I've got many happy memories of living and working in Indonesia. My first time in Indonesia was in 2005. I spent 10 months in Aceh working for Care Indonesia on Simeulue Island. This was, of course, after tsunami Aceh, which occurred on 24th of December 2004. It was a terrible disaster that captured the world's attention. Um, there was terrible destruction and loss of life, as I'm sure you all know. But that was just the first tsunami. I was part of the second tsunami. I was one of several thousand Bule Gila who arrived in Aceh, not able to speak Indonesian or Achenese, not understanding local emergency management systems in Aceh, not understanding and often not respecting Indonesian government procedures and structures. Instead of helping, many of us expatriates from all over the world got in the way, or we stole the most talented Indonesian staff from government or schools to work in our international NGOs or donor agencies as drivers and translators. What a waste of talent. Often competition for staff, for accommodation, for information, for access to communities, or for media attention got in the way of coordination, collaboration, and cooperation. The international humanitarian system, and all of us who participated in it, owe Indonesia a big apology for that. I was quite lucky. I was assigned to work on Simeulue Island and away from the chaos in Banda Aceh. I was also very privileged to work with an exceptional and very committed team, mostly very young people from all over Indonesia. And I also had the opportunity to work very closely with TNI. At first, I have to admit, I was a bit scared of working with the military, but then I saw they're incredibly hardworking and committed. And I was very surprised to see that most of the soldiers loved to sing karaoke, and in fact were very good dancers. Um, but yeah, their professionalism and commitment to resolving the humanitarian situation in Aceh, in Simeulue, was second to none. The challenges in Aceh were significant. The mistakes were many, but I learned a great deal from the team. One thing that made a lasting impression was the very high level skills in community development, community engagement, and consultation that our Indonesian staff demonstrated. Their community engagement skills far exceeded those of any of the expatriates I saw, including mine. And after almost a year on Simalu, I returned to Australia and to my job at AusAid, the name of the Australian aid agency at the time. In 2006, you might remember there was a major earthquake which hit Yogyakarta. And I was asked by AusAid to accompany the newly formed Australian Medical Assistance Team to support the Indonesian government's response to this disaster. Our team included some highly experienced surgeons and other medical personnel, as well as logistical support. We arrived within about 72 hours of the disaster occurring. What I noticed, however, was that Indonesian medical teams seemed to pretty well have the situation, at least the most severe aspects of the situation, under control. But when the hospital operating facilities were not being used, the Australian team could give the Indonesian medical teams a break. Additional clinics were also set up at a sports stadium. And there are also some mobile clinics which we carried out. Unfortunately, due to a major oversight by the Australian team, some of the critical medical supplies needed for orthopedic surgery were forgotten in Sydney. We were missing some of the titanium plates, pins, screws that our surgeons needed for their work. So instead of Australian support helping Indonesian teams, the Indonesian medical teams helped the Australian team by generously sharing some of their equipment stockpile to allow us to support them effectively. When our team left after 2 weeks, there was hardly a broken bone in all of Java that hadn't been mended. But now, a new medical team from Australia arrived, and a few weeks after the earthquake, 50 doctors turned up from Cuba. This was another important lesson for me. Help when needed during a disaster is good, but too much help or help when it's no longer needed can be as much of a hindrance as anything else.
Excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Daniel.
Yes?
Yeah. The slides were briefly stopped earlier, so please
Oh,
yeah,
is it
share
working
your
now?
presentation again. No,
Oh, okay. Sorry.
it's okay.
Okay. Bear with me. There we are. Is that better?
Yeah, it's all clear. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's get rid of that. A few years later, another serious disaster hit Indonesia, the 2018 earthquake and tsunami in Palu, Sulawesi. To the surprise of some people working in international NGOs, BNPB issued clear directions that foreign NGOs are not allowed to go directly to the field. All activities must be conducted in partnership with local partners. It seemed like sensible advice, but this was a shock to some foreign disaster organizations who were used to taking charge. But those of us who saw what happened in Aceh were not surprised, and in my view, this approach was long overdue. Indonesia has shown great leadership in taking back control in response to major disasters. And this represents a big shift in the humanitarian aid and disaster response sector more generally. The development of local disaster management capacity in countries such as Indonesia, the Philippines, Vanuatu, Fiji, and many of the other countries in our region over the last 20 years has been tremendous. Other countries in the Asia Pacific have started to follow Indonesia's example. It's not about refusing genuine offers of assistance. Some disasters are so major that external help is needed. But it is about making sure that help does not get in the way and that local leaders have full control of the response. There are some important reasons why a reliance on external assistance is unwise. Firstly, the intensity and frequency of major disasters is increasing. climate change is the big driver. The world is now on track for 2 degrees of global warming within just a few decades. This will inevitably lead to significantly more major and minor disasters. Secondly, in the last 12 months, as this graph shows, we've seen a global aid fall sharply. Even as private wealth by the world's richest 1% has skyrocketed, there's been a reversal of decades of growth in international humanitarian and development aid. Instead of sharing the burden of adaptation to climate change, the largest donor states seem to want to shed the burden of helping to address these challenges. As disasters increase, less assistance is likely. This means that the challenge of responding to disasters is increasingly falling to national governments, to their militaries, and to communities. There are opportunities for countries such as Indonesia and Australia to work closely together bilaterally to improve resilience and disaster preparedness, response, and preparedness in both countries. In fact, already I saw last month that the Australian Defence Force and TNE were training together to improve coordination in response to disasters and humanitarian emergencies. But the bottom line is this: as disasters become more frequent, communities need to be more prepared than ever to face the challenges ahead. In Australia, we also experience a lot of disasters and face many natural hazards. We experience drought, heatwave, floods, cyclones, storms. We can also have devastating forest or bushfires. Fortunately, we don't have many active volcanoes and we don't experience severe earthquakes and normally don't experience tsunamis. But even in recent historical or geological times, there were volcanoes in Australia, and there's even an oral tradition within Australian traditional Aboriginal communities in some areas talking about massive disasters and eruptions around 10,000 years ago. European settlement caused major disruptions to the traditional approaches to managing the environment. In a few places, traditional Aboriginal practices of caring for country to manage natural resources and disaster risk have continued, but much knowledge was lost and is now only being rediscovered. Due to the disruptions caused by European settlement, the practices of regular low-intensity burns practiced by most Aboriginal groups were abandoned, and there were massive fuel loads which accumulated. This resulted in, and has continued to result in, much more severe and destructive bushfires. Following European colonisation, settler communities and colonial governments developed their own ways of responding to disasters. And the first arrangement is similar to what you would find anywhere in the world: neighbours helping neighbours, friends and family coming together to support each other, communities helping the most vulnerable. Australia has developed a strong ethic of volunteerism. Most of our emergency response agencies are staffed by volunteers who are members of the community. In 1901, Australia became a federation, and with that, under a new constitution, state and territory governments were given the prime responsibility for responding to and recovering from natural disasters. States are also have key responsibilities for hospitals, schools, transport, police, and as you can see here, emergency services. Within states, local government has a kind of prime responsibility for local infrastructure and services, and are the level of government that's most involved in community recovery. However, recent major disasters have really highlighted the limitations of state-based responses. This has led to some changes in Australia's emergency management arrangements. What we also see is that disasters in Australia are increasing in frequency and severity due to climate change, which is resulting in longer-term, more complex impacts. Rural communities are among the most affected. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has issued a grim forecast for Australia in terms of disasters. with ongoing warming, more hot days, fewer cold days, further sea level rise, ocean warming, ocean acidification, more extreme fire weather, increased drought, increased heavy rainfall, and fewer but more severe cyclones. And I realize that many of these same observations will apply to Indonesia. Like Indonesia, Australia has also learnt a lot in recent years. And Australia is also guided by the Sendai framework, 2015 to 30, which encourages international cooperation aimed at the substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihoods, and health, and in the economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental assets of persons, businesses, communities, and countries. Australia has recently updated its emergency management arrangements, and I won't describe these in too much detail because it would take too much time, but it provides definitions of emergency management as a range of measures to manage risks to communities and the environment, the organisation and management of resources for dealing with all aspects of emergency. There are also specific outlines of the different roles that different aspects of government play, as well as key definitions for what we would, the key terms that we refer to in terms of emergency as an event, actual or imminent, which endangers or threatens to endanger life, property, or the environment, and which requires a significant and coordinated response. Emergencies happen every day. Not all of them require a massive response. However, in some cases, the size, scale, and impact, complexity, or consequence of an emergency is such that the emergency is considered a disaster. Under our arrangements, a disaster is described as being a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or a society at any scale due to the hazardous events which interact with conditions of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity, and which lead to one or more of the following: human, material, economic, environmental losses and impacts. And again, this is a detailed slide, but essentially what it is showing is that there are a range of, there's a scale of emergencies ranging from minor to major or catastrophic. And it's the catastrophic emergencies that we perhaps recognize most as disasters, which entail a whole of government response. In this case, local agencies, local responders may be completely overwhelmed. International assistance might be required, and it may even impact across more than one state or territory in Australia. At the national level, there's been a new organisation created called the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. It's responsible for coordinating and managing national level emergency response to help those who are affected by disasters. And it's also seen the establishment of a national coordination mechanism, which cuts across all of the different sectors in a way that's a bit similar to the cluster system, perhaps, used by humanitarian NGOs. In Australia, like Indonesia, the concept of resilience has become really important. As the National Strategy for Disaster Resilience highlights, emergency management in Australia is built on the concept of prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. And in emphasizing a new emphasis on resilience, the strategy notes that the fundamental change is that achieving increased disaster resilience is not solely the domain of an emergency management agency, rather, it's a shared responsibility across the whole of society. This recognition of the importance of the role of the whole of society, of communities, business, schools, university, the media, civil society, is actually in some ways a pretty new idea in Australia. I think potentially in Indonesia, you've been talking about this for longer. And something else which is relatively new in Australia is an increased focus on recovery. In the past, the main emphasis has been on response, and this has taken away some of the attention from prevention, preparedness, and recovery. The urgency of a new approach was brought home to us very recently during the Black Summer of 2019 and 2020. This has been Australia's most recent catastrophic disaster. And the widespread nature of these fires and their intensity, their speed, all exceeded our previous experiences of bushfires. From July 2019 to March 2020, we had a 9-month long period of severe fire danger. And this was brought about by prolonged drought for several years previously, and then extreme temperatures over the spring and summer period. This is the temperature forecast for the 4th of January in 2020, when fires were already burning across much of Australia. The climax of this period of disasters occurred over the holiday period in the East Coast when most Australians were relaxing. And this is just one image of the tremendous scale of some of the fires and the plumes of smoke which drifted right across the Pacific, even causing visibility problems in South America. One of the other things that was observed is that the intensity of these fires was so great that they actually started to generate their own weather systems. So the intensity of the flames caused these huge plumes interacting with the atmosphere, in some cases resulting in storms and even dry lightning caused by the actual fire itself, as well as really quite excessive winds. So frankly, these were quite terrifying, self-perpetuating firestorms that were threatening much of the East Coast. The map on the right-hand side shows fires, or the areas that were burnt by fire over this period. Obviously, this is not all simultaneously occurring. It does look very dramatic, but nevertheless, it was a huge area of land that was impacted. And the response to the fires was complicated by the many tourists who were stranded along coastal towns. Roads were blocked, there were massive queues for fuel, for water, for food, and the smoke was relentless. Initially, each state tried to manage within their own resources, and our own national government experienced severe criticism for taking too long to coordinate the response. Eventually, the Navy and military were called in to provide evacuation to stranded locals and foreigners. And while the military did provide some really crucial assets for evacuations and medical assistance, as seen here with a medical team arriving to provide assistance, there was also growing concern among military leaders that disaster response was becoming a major distraction for the military from their fundamental purpose of defense. Overall, the impacts, as I said, were massive. We saw 24 million hectares of forest burnt, 33 people killed directly, as much as 450 people who are estimated to have died by the effects of smoke inhalation, 3 billion animals killed, $20 billion in damage, and recovery from this was just commencing when some communities were hit by floods. Then, of course, like the rest of the world, in March 2020, communities were hit by COVID, and this severely impacted on recovery. So I want to talk quickly about some of the initiatives that have taken place in the aftermath of this disaster, one of which has been led by an organisation called Australian Business Volunteers. And the work of ABV focuses on one of the domains of community recovery that I mentioned previously, namely the economic and business environment. And it's recognised that some of the most skilled people in our community are business people. When communities are severely impacted by disasters, regenerating the business environment is absolutely crucial. Everybody depends on it. But local businesses, tourism operators, accommodation providers, all of those people in the community who provide a business may often be overwhelmed by the disaster that's impacted on them. So ABV has specialized in bringing volunteers with skills in business planning, engineering, financial management, budgeting, grant and proposal writing to support local communities and projects that are led by the community. And their approach seems to be pretty good. They focus on meeting communities where they are at. They focus on facilitating place-based networks of resilience and supporting communities to prepare. And this next slide from the Australian Disaster Resilience Community Recovery Handbook highlights the kind of interconnectedness of the different environments which are important for community recovery, namely social environment, the economic environment, the natural environment, and the built environment. So a few years ago, Australian business volunteers approached us at Deakin University and said that they wanted to try and get some funding for more of their work, but alongside that work, they were hoping to partner with the university to help to, investigate what was working well about this approach and whether there was, something more that could be done to essentially to build an evidence base for the kind of work that they were doing. They weren't, this isn't about simple monitoring and evaluation, but about a wider kind of research exercise, talking to communities about their needs and trying to establish how that intersects with this idea of business volunteering. Specifically, we're looking at how business volunteering builds resilient communities, including successful community-led disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. We're looking at what role disaster preparedness by business plays in overall community preparedness, and also sort of asking what government needs to learn from communities to better prepare, respond, and recover from disasters. The specific area that we're focusing on is called East Gippsland, and it's a small, well, it's actually a large local government area in Victoria. When you look at the size of it, and I'll just finish in another minute or two with sharing a few insights from this research, which is ongoing. But East Gippsland is a rural district. In terms of size, it's about 4 times maybe the size of Bali. But like most areas of rural Australia, it's very sparsely populated, just around 50,000 people recorded at the last census. This obviously makes it a very different context to Indonesia. Our research in East Gippsland has really been co-designed with the community. We're really interested in how communities can build resilience in the face of increasing disasters. Our findings are still emerging, but some of the things that are really looming very large for us are, potentially quite obvious, but also some are quite surprising. Communities are very diverse. The community members come from different backgrounds, experience, and perspectives, and they want different things. But they share at least one common goal in that they almost always want what is good for their community, and they want to be heard. They want to have control over the decisions that affect them. Over time, we've seen more and more responsibility and risk shift from government to community groups themselves in Australia, and this becomes especially visible when it comes to issues like insurance. So some situations in some communities are now effectively uninsurable, which leaves communities to carry the risk alone if there's a disaster. The issue of trust has also emerged as being really important. Communities have had bad experiences with government in Australia in the past and sometimes have trouble trusting government. More importantly, government processes often indicate a lack of trust of communities. The heavy focus on compliance, reporting, procedures, and accountability can, in some cases, stifle community initiatives. What is really impressive, however, is the level of creativity that communities, specifically the community in East Gippsland, has demonstrated. The East Gippsland Winter Festival is just one of dozens of community-led initiatives that have reinvigorated the local economy after the Black Summer fires. Communities have essentially adopted an approach of just getting on with it, rather than waiting for help from outside in some cases. We also heard that communities really value stories as the form of currency, and that stories help to kind of build trust, connection, and reciprocity. In a sense, stories are something of the glue that holds relationships together. But that takes time, and so does listening, so does sharing a meal. Communities often emphasize that they wanted government and wanted external stakeholders to take time to slow down and spend time with them rather than rush in and rush out. And this is, I think, my last slide pretty well. Just a little bit of information about the Winter Festival, which was an initiative entirely developed and led by local people in the East Gippsland region. It's contributed millions of dollars to the local economy. It's helped to reinvigorate small, declining rural communities by bringing in tourists to help stimulate local businesses, and that kind of thing. At the end of it, really, and by way of concluding, at the heart of community resilience is not perfection. Communities have really kind of emphasized that they wanted to have opportunities to make mistakes and to fail, but when they fail, to know that there's going to be support and help there. And this permission to fail and to make mistakes is a really important aspect of learning. And at the heart of community resilience, we are hearing that it's not about perfection, it's about trust, time, respect, and the chance for communities to be able to lead their own recovery. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. McAvoy, for the truly insightful and thought-provoking presentation. You have provided us with a deeper understanding of how communities can build resilience through collaboration, innovation, and local empowerment. And also your presentation has reminded us that disaster preparedness is not only about response, but also about strengthening human connection and shared readiness. So now we would like to present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Daniel McAvoy, MA, for his valuable contribution as our keynote speaker today. May I kindly ask the committee to share the certificate on screen. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So please, Dr. McAvoy, give us your best smile for documentation.
Thank you.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Great.
Once again, thank you, Doctor, for your time and meaningful insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, we truly appreciate your presence in today's event. So if you have other engagement afterwards, please feel free to leave the Zoom meeting. And thank you once again for sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now begin our scientific session. It is an honor to introduce our moderator, Dr. Adi Fahruzi, who will guide the upcoming discussion. Before we start, allow me to briefly introduce Dr. Adi Fahruzi. So please, the committee to share screen the CV.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello, Dr. Adi.
Oke, thank you Siva.
Ya, dok, sedang menunggu CV-nya, dok.
Oke.
Yeah. So, Dr. Adi is a specialist in anesthesiology and intensive therapy, and also a lecturer at the Faculty of Medicine, General Ahmad Yani University, where he currently serves as the head of the Department of Emergency Medicine. He practiced as anesthesiologist and intensive care physician at several institutions, including Original Public Hospital Chililin, the university's teaching hospital for dental and oral medicine, General Ahmad Yani University, a general hospital at FSNA Cimahi. Dr. Adi has participated in numerous national and international workshops, including advanced trauma life support, advanced cardiac life support, critical care support, and specialized training in Indonesia, Turkey, the Netherlands, Bali, and Yogyakarta. He's also active in research and publication, with work focusing on perioperative anesthesia, pain management, and exercise physiology. We are truly honored to have Dr. Adi Fahruzi with us today as our moderator. With great respect, I now hand over the session to Dr. Adi Fahruzi.
Okay, thank you Siva. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome all your today webinar, part of the Road to International Jamboree 2025, with the theme Wave of Readiness Strengthening Emergency Response Together. Okay, let's introduce myself. My name is Odi Fahruzi, and I'm truly honored to serve your moderator for this inspiring event. This theme is highly relevant as this era of climate change and increased disaster risk. Preparedness is the key to saving more lives. Today, we're fortunate to learn directly from expectation expert, both from Indonesia and abroad, who will share their insight on how to strengthen our collective capacity in emergency and disaster response. Before we begin, allow me to give a brief overview of today's event. The webinar is part of World International Jamboree 2025, organized by Faculty of Medicine, University General Ahmad Yani, and University of Hasanuddin, which will held from November 18 to 2025. This program serves as a moment, strengthens collaboration, knowledge, and networks in its field of emergency response and disaster management, building a spirit of readiness and resilience among healthcare professionals and volunteers alike. Before I moving forward, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dean of Faculty of Medicine, and for this continued support and encouragement is making this event probable. Okay, we delegated an honor to have an excellent lineup of distinguished speaker with us. And the first speaker is Mr. Burton Suar Prita Panjaitan. The topic is disaster management introduction. Second speaker, Evi Aprianti. The topic is community-based disaster risk management of four coastal area. And then Dr. Jonathan Lassa. The topic is tsunami mechanism, early sign and mitigation strategy. And the last speaker is Professor Dr. Iwan Meliano. The topic is Introduction to Coastal Hazard, Type and Characteristics. Let's give a big virtual round of applause to all our amazing speakers today. Before we start, please take note of a few reminders. First, keep your microphone mute during the presentation. And then if you have a question, please type them in the chat box at any time. All questions will be addressed during a Q&A question at the end. Okay, now before our first presentation, allow me to brief introduce our first speaker, Dr. Burton Suar Panjaitan, SKM, MHM, PhD. Can anyone help me to share the CV? Okay, thank you. The full name, Dr. Burton Suar Panjaitan, SKM, MHP, PhD. He's born in Marihat, October 9, 1969. And then employee story, Direct of Early Warning and BNPB is implementing adjustment of multi-hazard early warning effort toward inter-agency coordination. And the second employee story, Direct of Disaster Mitigation BNPB, March 2023 until April 2025. He's implementing structure and cultural mitigation effort in disaster management, head of education and training center in BNPB, and many more. Okay, the education is PhD from University of Canterbury, New Zealand, Hazard and Disaster Management in 2017. Master University of New England, Australia, Health Management 2021. Baylor University, North Sumatra, it's a public health 1993, and high school in SMA Negeri 1 Pematang Siantar in biology. Professional training course, so many, it's amazing. The first executive leader training in LEN Jakarta, leadership training LEN Jakarta, reform leader academic and LEN Aceh, and many more professional training course in disaster. Okay. Okay, without further delay, please welcome Dr. Berton Suarpanjaitan, who will deliver a presentation titled Disaster Management Introduction. The presentation will be last for approximately 30 minutes. Dr. Berton, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Audi. Somebody please share my presentation. And I think in Jakarta right now is very heavy rain. So I think it might affect my networks later on, but hopefully not. And maybe some noisy come up from my backgrounds, but hopefully all this presentation will be go through. Please from the first dari slide pertama please. Ya, terus ke atas itu slide hampir yang terakhir. Terus ke atas please. Ke atas. Okay, for today, I think we learned a lot from Pak Daniel. Terus sampai mentok. We learned from Pak Daniel that how Australia handled the problem, and I think it's good to know that Australia is not very much prone to tsunami, earthquake, and some others hazard. And then yes, also he mentioned about how to handle the problem in Australia. Now I'll be talking about disaster management introduction and relating it into health sector. Please, next slide, please. And next slide, please. Yeah. My topic will be the impact of disaster, and then the impact of disaster on health sectors, and then I'll be talking about the disaster management introduction or concepts, which is pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster, and a little bit about how the health sector handle the role of the health sector in building capacity during disaster or before disaster. All right, next slide, please. In recent years, our world has been shaken by powerful disasters, earthquake, flood, wildfires, volcanic eruptions, and a global pandemic that touched every corner of the world, which is, we know, COVID-19. And each of these tragedies has left behind stories of loss, survivals, and resilience, and reminding us how fragile life can be in the face of our natural forces. Next slide, please. In Indonesia itself, if you can see here, that a lot of the impact of health has been emerged during disaster. Hospital has been collapsed and overflowed with patients. Medicines have run out, and disease has spread where clean water or sanitations are very rare at the time. Health workers have stood on front lines in fighting not only to save lives, but to restore hope in the heart of those who have lost everything. Here, a lot of cases in Indonesia, and then a lot of health facilities being damaged due to disaster. Next slide, please. This slide is telling us about the disaster management. So this is the very basic of disaster management. There are three cyclic explanation about the disaster management, which is pre-disaster, and then during disaster, and after disaster. But oftentimes we always do in terms of programmatic arrangement. We divide it, become four. Somehow there are maybe five, but later on I'll talking only four in terms of programmatic explanation. Okay, usually we have here is like prevention and mitigation, and then preparedness, disaster response, and recovery programs when we come to the end of the cycle of disaster. Next slide, please. Yeah, the first phase is prevention. Next slide, please, is the same slide with the previous one. You can go on to the next slide, please. The first phase in prevention is reduction risk before disaster happens. In the health sector, this means designing hospitals and clinics can be resist floods and earthquakes, enforcing safety codes, and protecting the environment. A strong example in spatial management, decided where and how to build health facilities safely. Hospital should never be built in floodplains or fault lines. However, Indonesia is not very often the case. Next slide, please. You can hear INARIS can telling us this is the developed by BNPB. It helps us to identify areas at risk by mapping hazard, potential losses, and exposure. So every student or participant can access to this, and it telling us about where you are right now and how risk you are on that the area. So you know how in the future you can handle the risk by, of course, you know, the hazard. This INARIS been used of many institutions. For example, health planners can make smarter decisions and prevent disaster management before it begins. Next slide, please. Prevention also includes how to develop the planning, the planning for the next 5 years, for example, integrating disaster risk reduction into long-term health strategies, budgets, and infrastructure investment. So building a health system become investment. It will be a strategic plan for health system become stronger in the future. Every health project should already consider safety and resilience. Lastly, prevention involves education, training, and simulation exercise. Please, next slide. Health workers and students need regular drills and practice education, triage, and communication. You can see in Unjani, we have this program. It's very good program to Faculty of Medicines. So this doctor, this candidate of doctors will know, the knowledge will stay forever if they because they learn it now from the beginning. So it is good when disasters come, the doctors, for example, know how to do, not how to guess. Next slide, please. Yeah, in terms of the prevention, we know also about the, after we know prevention, we come up to preparedness. Disaster can be still happen while we do some prevention. Preparedness ensure that when disaster come, we are ready. This includes creating hospital preparedness plans. Next slide, please. In Indonesia, we have these kind of things, hospital accreditation requirement. Next slide, please. We train a lot of doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and also restoring emergency medical supplies and setting up early warning system in the hospital. So this become a very good approach to health system become robust in the next future. Health workers must be trained for trauma care, infection control, and mass casualty management. Next slide, please. Yes, this is some rules of pharmacies. We know some rules of doctors, but also some rule of pharmacies also to should be established in the hospital as well as in other health facilities. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is some regulation from the government, the Ministry of Health, that been established on pharmaceutical affairs. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in short, actually, we need in phase of pre-disaster phase, development of the manual on health sector as well. It is to simplify, in it very simple and to be understand of a lot of workers in the hospital or health facilities. It is should be flexible. Hang on, yeah, should be flexible to fit in different types of disaster, because a lot of disaster in Indonesia, this manual should be can be useful to other, not only one or two hazard, but also maybe 10 hazard the hospital or health facility can face in the future. We have clear, it should be clear and concise and able to avoid panic and confusion during disaster, because during disaster, for example, doctors, or not only doctors, but also patients in hospital will be panicked. So it must be easier for them to understand first in order to do a lot of prevention in the hospital or health facility. Next slide, please. Okay, the second phase of disaster, it is about the response phase. In response phase begins the moment disaster strikes. Its main goal is to save life, reduce suffering, and prevent further damage. This stage relies on three things: speed, coordination, and communication. So I will be talking about repeat assessment on location and losses and resources during disaster. The team should be quick gather information in order during disaster. Rapid assessment should be done. We know what happened, but how deep it is. We need to understand it. Who are affected? What kind of people? How about hospital? How about the clinic? And how about the other sectors like SAR and rescue team? So these other resources also we need to understand. So this repeat assessment, we need exactly how to understand the location of the case, where the helps next to us, how many losses, and how about the resources that are available or potentially available to the location, to the disaster situation. This assessment helps our responders prioritize and send helps where it seems it's not easy for them. The second one is in this phase is determination of response status. In Indonesia, this is very important to determine the status. It is for district level, provincial level, or national level of disaster. So the authorities will classify of disaster. It is local, it is provincial, or national level. Based on the assessment, we need to understand the severity of disaster. So the authorities will decide how big the problem is. So we'll understand how to handle the problem. And the second, the third one is about the search and rescue. After it's not actually the chronicle orders of these activities, but during the rapid assessment, we can do SAR activities as well as before determination of the response status. The SAR teams can do their job. So SAR teams, including Basarnas in Indonesia, military, police, and volunteers work tirelessly and to find and to rescue victims. We understand, we know maybe 1 month ago, a boarding school in Jawa Timur, East Java, collapsed, and a lot of efforts that we've done there. As our teams have done their job very well. So they use a lot of effort as well as facilities like drone, dogs, GVS, even robotic equipment to allocate the survival as well as the victims. So search and rescue is very needed during the disaster. We have also emergency medical and health services. When victims are rescued, medical teams provide first aid, traumatic care, sanitation control. Mobile hospitals and field clinics operate when regular hospitals are damaged. Public health team prevent outbreaks throughout hygienic vaccination and clean water program. Humanitarian relief also are needed. People who survive disaster often lost homes, food, and water. Humanitarian relief provides temporary shelter, food, hygienic kits, and restore dignity and safety. Coordination also we need during the disaster, during this phase. No response can succeed without coordination. Health services, government, military, and NGO must work as one team, sharing information and rescue and resources. Clear communication internally among responders, and of course externally with the public prevents confusion and save lives. We understand here communication also important to announce things that what we have done, what will be done in the near future. And then restoration and critical services also important during this time. While response continues, restoring electricity, water, transportation, and communication is essential. Without these, hospitals and relief operation cannot be functional very effectively. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is some, enter please. This is some example actually how health issues, slide please. Yes, related to disaster. Disaster affect health in many ways. Of course, food and nutrition are very important. Supply chains are broken during this disaster, leading to hunger and of course malnutrition in some ways. Mental health can be very severe, and traumatic and stress cause long-term emotional damage. So we need to handle mental health of the victims. Communicable disease also, we need to avoid outbreaks spread out through unsafe water as well as overcrowding. Of course, injuries following disaster also, we need to handle very well because crush wound, burns, and fracture requires urgent care. The health sector must address all these issues, not only to save lives, but also restore physical and mental well-being. Next slide, please. Yeah, now we come to the last phase of cycle of disaster management. This phase, once the emergency stabilized, we enter the recovery phase. Rebuilding lives and restoring systems are important. Recovery is not only reconstruction, but it is renewal. Before we do things, implement the activities for this phase, we need also damage and loss assessment. So we need to assess how things was going on right now, because it's most stabilized right now, but of course a lot of things to be done. In this first step, assessing what was destroyed and how much was lost. In health sector, it measures how many hospitals were damaged or clinics, or how about the health providers are available right now, how much medical equipment and supplies were lost, and the financial impact of the health services. DALA, damage and loss assessment, gives governments the data they need to plan and budget recovery effects. The second phase of this cycle is a need assessment. Needs assessment should be done by team to identify what is needed to restore normal health services. So we need to understand what healthcare gaps exist, what resources and staff are missing, and which communities are most vulnerable. This ensure recovery is evidence-based and equitable. And then the next one is a recovery action plan. Of course, after we have the finding from DALA, damage and loss assessment, as well as need assessment. Now we need to make our plan. After the assessment, a recovery plan is created. It outlines who will do what, when, and with what resources. In health, it includes restoring health facilities, rebuilding the health workforce, repairing supply chains, restarting public health programs, providing mental health support, and restructuring systems to build back better, safer, and more sustainable. Last one is, of course, to implement the recovery action plan. In this phase, it is put into actions. Implementations happen in three stages: short-term, restore emergency services, and then medium-term, repair facilities and re-establish health programs, and last one is longer-term, to rebuild stronger disaster resilience system. This process requires strong coordination, financing, and of course, monitoring to ensure progress and accountability. Last one is the role of health sector to build resilience in the community. Throughout these stages, the health sector plays in central role. Not only in treating victims, but also in prevention, planning, and leadership. A strong health system, we need to save lives during disasters, prevent diseases outbreaks, and help community recovery faster. By integrating disaster risk reduction into our every level, from hospital design to staff training, we create a system that can stand future emergencies. In conclusion, the disaster management in health sector is a never-ending cycle. Or we learn, we adapt, and we improve. It connects prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery into one continuous effort to save lives and protect health. When health workers are trained, hospitals are safe, and communities are involved, disasters no longer mean a total destruction. They become challenges, of course, that can be overcome. As a resilient health system means a resilient community. Thank you very much. I think that's all from me. I hope this road to International Jamboree 2020 and attending the emergency response and disaster International Jamboree Unjani for you guys. And thank you very much and see you soon. Bye from me. Over to you, Dr. Odi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burton, for interesting material. Okay. Maybe for the next, if anyone to question, you can chat in the Zoom, and we can tell in the Q&A. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Burton, for the material. It's very insightful and enlightening presentation. Okay, now let's move to our second speaker, Dr. Evi FNTS PhD, who will discuss community-based disaster risk management for coastal area. Okay, for the CV, before we begin, let me briefly introduce her background. Okay, anyone can help me to share the CV? Okay, Dr. Evi addressed in Tamala, Makassar. She's born in April 24, 1989. Professional summary: Dr. Evi is the civil chevron lecturer at the Graduate School of Hasanuddin University atau UNHAS, focusing on suitable development, gender, and disaster management. He has extensive experience in teaching, research, and postgraduate academic program development. Active involved in various academic activities, he contributes through research, publication, interdisciplinary collaboration, and supervision of student scientific work. She also plays an important role in preparing acceleration document, developing curriculum and learning material, as well implementing community civil program and employment capacity building. And then teaching philosophy-nya, she dedicated to providing high quality education through collaboration and careers. A motivated lecturer with a proven track record development and delivering effectivities lecture. Research and publication. Dr. Evie apparently has conducted research and publication scientific work in fields of gender community empowerment, disaster risk management, and suitable development. Her publication and citation profile can be accessed via Google Scholar. Okay, and then okay, and many more. Okay. Before we begin, let's me brief. Okay. All right. Dr. Effie, are you in there? Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Effie. Without the further delay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Effie Aprianti. You have 30 minutes for your presentation. The screen is yours, Dr. Effie. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Dr. Oni. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Distinguished keynote speaker, distinguished guests. Hello. My voice was clear. Did you guys hear my voice? Hello.
Yes, Doc.
Hello. Did you
Yeah.
hear my voice clearly?
Clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Doc.
Yeah. Okay. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, guys. Good afternoon, distinguished keynote speaker, distinguished college, and fellow student researchers, and all participants. It is both an honor and privilege to stand before you today, insight on the topic of growing importance, community-based disaster management for coastal areas. As we get forum, we are united by a shared commitment to advancing knowledge that not only inform policy but also transform lives. The subject of disaster risk management is no longer confined to technical manuals or emergency protocols. It has become an essential pillar of sustainable development, environmental stewardship, and human security. Our focus today is on how we, as a part of community, how local communities, particularly those who living in vulnerable coastal zones, areas, can be empowered to take ownership of their safety and future through participatory approaches. This conversation is not about disaster response mechanism, but most of them is about cultivating resiliences of communities. Every citizen, regardless of any status, any professions, any jobs, becomes an active practice to resilience to disaster. Before delivering into the technical dimension of CBDRM, we can call CBDRM as a abbreviation for the coastal areas. I would like to tell you more simple way what is CBDRM is. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Slide berikutnya, minta tolong. Terima kasih. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Fortunately, the picture is not going well, but what I need to show you, previous slide, please. The previous slide, please. Before this slide, please. No, the previous one, slide number 2, page 2. Way longer, please, page 2. Back to page 2, please. Okay. Can you play the video? Is it slide page 2? I think not. Can you play the video? Sometimes presentation during online is a little bit an error, but it's not a big problem. What I need to show you up is about how the disasters gain communities in order to prepare the resiliences. Can you play the video, please?
I'm sorry, Doc, we cannot play this video.
Okay, no problem. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
just stop. Just pause to the page 2, and I can explain with the words. So the coastal regions, I need to show you up that need you to know, guys, because the coastal regions represent some of the most vulnerable and dynamic landscapes on the earth. They are continuously shaped by the interaction between land and sea. So again, land and so making them both ecologically rich and environmentally fragile. Over the past decades, there are have faced increasing exposure to a wide range of natural hazard such as tropical storms, storm surge, sea level rise, coastal erosion, and saline intrusion. Many disasters happen in the coastal areas. The intensifying effects of climate change have further amplified these threats, resulting in loss of biodiversity and degradation of coastal ecosystem such as mangroves, coral reefs, and wetlands, and etc. Many more resources which in the coastal areas. These environmental pressure are compounded by human factors, rapid urbanization, population density, and the expansion of activities along the coast, all of which heighten disaster risk, strain local adaptive capacities. So, yep. Uh, it is very happy to coastal areas, but the disaster is time long way to uh, predict when will the come. Despite the vulnerabilities, coastal regions remain vital economic and also social hubs that support millions of people worldwide. They are home to vibrant fishing communities, tourism, and maritime that sustain national economies. However, the livelihoods of these populations who live in coastal area are intrinsically tied to environmental stability. When disaster strikes, we know that the impacts will be very big, destroying homes, livelihoods, cultural heritage, and many more. It is within the concept of CBDRM, we can call it like a community base of disaster, as a transformative approaching for disaster population. So it is a long Back, please. This is the page 3. Am I right? Okay. First, we can see the picture on the background that I mentioned 2 point disaster vulnerable coastal areas and the importance of CBDRM. So, the background of DRM mostly talk about approaches emerge from critical realization that government-led or externally driven interventions often fall short the nuance of local realities. Conventional disaster management works, while technically robust, tend to be structured from the top down, emphasizing centralized planning, standardized procedure, and external expertise. However, such approaches frequently diversity of local context that you can see on the picture as appear on the screen. Second one is in many coastal areas, since we talk about the importances. For instance, communities have over generation developed traditional knowledge systems that are both adaptive and place specific. Fishermen interpret subtle changes in ocean color or the behavior of seabirds as early warning indicators of storms. Farmers in delta regions model patterns and soil salinity to predict flooding cycle, such as empirical wisdom transmitted through oral traditions and communal practices represent an invaluable resources in the disaster risk reduction. CBDRM to SDGs is important, meaningful for community engagement because they are among the most consistent predictors of success in disaster risk management. We know that when local residents are directly involved in assessing hazards, identifying formulating action plans, the resulting intervention are not only more relevant but also more cost effective and sustainable. That's why CBDRM are always connected and integrated to this SDGs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Community-based. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay. I think because of the signal or maybe the transition of the slide is not working well, but okay, this is the page 4. I need to explain about the integration and how we define CBDRM to the coastal, to the tsunamis and everything that related to the coastal areas. CBDRM is best understood as a participatory and inclusive process in which local communities take an active role in many more action, identifying, analyzing, reducing risks that threaten their safety, then positioning the community as mere recipients of external aid. CBDRM recognizes them as equal partners in the execution of disaster management strategies. These participate in 4th stage of the disaster management cycle, from prevention to mitigation, or from prevention to the preparedness, response, and recovery for the communities. By engaging communities across these interconnected phases, CBDRM ensures that disaster management is not an event, but also an ongoing adaptive process rooted in local realities. Unlike traditional top-down approaches where decision-making authority is concentrated within government or institutional, CBDRM shifts that center of gravity toward the grassroots level. In this model that you can see on the picture screen, local stakeholders become central across capable of articulating their needs, prioritizing interventions, and mobilize the resources in times of crisis. Such empowerment strengthens cohesion, encourage collective problem solving, and builds a culture of shared responsibility that endures beyond borders. Empirical evidence from both rural and coastal area setting demonstrate that communities actively involved in their own risk governance achieve faster recovery, better resources, and greater sustainability in outcomes. Okay, what is community-based disaster? Community-based disaster risk management can be explained in a simple way. We can say that CBDRM itself is an approach to reducing disaster risk that start with you. So start with all of you. Community this in a CBDRM community means that we are involved. People who live in areas, even though inland, even though in coastal, even though maybe in the air, they are often have responsibility to reduce disaster by starting from yourself. In a simple terms, CBDRM means that a local people take an active role in preparing for responding to and recovering from disasters such as floods, tsunamis that already explained by our speaker, or storms instead of waiting for help from the government or outside organization. Communities work together to identify the danger around them, plan what to do before and after disaster, how to prevent the disaster, and use their own knowledge and resources to protect their lives and livelihoods. When applied to coastal areas that we know, CBDR focuses on the special risks that communities face near the sea, such as erosion. Many more erosion happen right now. Rising sea levels, saltwater intrusion, and strong winds or waves. Coastal communities often have traditional knowledge about climate change. We believe, but we many of them. Fish behavior, wind patterns, read the weather, and any other traditional knowledge that coastal population, coastal communities know. In CBDRM, this local wisdom is combined with modern science and technologies like weather forecasts or early warning system to create stronger and more resilient communities. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so in short, CBDRM for coastal areas helps people become more resilient, meaning that CBDRM should be prepared for disaster, respond quickly, and recover faster while protecting lives and their environment. And you can see that there are 6 points step-by-step framework that you can do. The principle of CBDRM directly support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDGs number 11 on sustainable and communities, SDGs number 13 on climate action. When communities are actively involved, disaster management efforts become inclusive and equitable. Hannah et al. To 2021, according to the previous researchers, integrating local participation resilience building ensures not only safety but also long-term social and environmental sustainability. Thus, CBDRM is not only a technical framework but also a moral and social imperative. And you can see, I can mention the community assessment and any etc. You can see on the screen. Figure out the breadth and depth of the interconnected processes of the CPDRM itself. It serves as a visual representation of how multiple dimensions, scientific knowledge, governance structures, environmental dynamics, and community converge to form a resilient system. In essence, resilience in coastal area is not the product of intervention such as infrastructure development or policy enforcement. Then, subsequently, it emerged as the cumulative outcome of an integrated and iterative process that links physical science with social understanding. The framework presented by the coastal geoscience is actually, I need to show you the picture. Talks many things about the coastal CBDRM itself, but unfortunately, the picture is a problem. Just maybe like a simple way I can explain about the coastal geoscience and engineering community. It recognizes that disaster risk reduction cannot be isolated with one discipline or JD. So we need to make a collaboration, many disciplines, areas in our university, in the communities, practitioners, and also agency. Engineers may design protective barriers. Medical can also barriers through resilient of health system. Early warning system also can relate with economic and social people, but without local participation, such technologies often fail and just to deliver sustained benefits. Conversely, communities may possess deep indigenous knowledge of their environment. Without institutional coordination and resource mobilization, their adaptive capacity remains constrained. Therefore, effective disaster management bridge the domains, creating pathways for dialogue and collaboration between all disciplines throughout the university and practitioners, and also sharing knowledge, or we can call it exchange itself, between scientists, policymakers, and local actors. Moreover, the the cyclical and adaptive nature of disaster management. By situating community participation within a scientific and governance framework, the model resilience must be co-produced through collaborative partnership. It is not a static condition, living, evolving process of capacity building of our communities. Stronger community preparedness, more effective risk reduction outcomes, culture of resilience is deeply rooted in the both empirical science, technology, and human experiences, particularly in a coastal area. Next slide, please. Okay. While waiting for the transition, I can explain the CBDRM process follows by several essential stages. First, communities conduct risk assessment, like we already see before from the previous screen. Next, they engage in capacity mapping and stakeholder analysis to determine who can contribute and how they contribute. Then they move toward planning, prioritize the action, followed by implementation and resources. And the final stage include monitoring, evaluation, and integration. CBDRM also process follows a series of interconnected and iterative stages, each designed to empower communities to identify, analyze, and act upon the risks they face. So the second stage are key actors and stakeholders. Key actors and stakeholders at the heart of SBDRM are we involved, are us. Jadi, so the people and community means like is we involve ourselves to resilience in a disaster. The local community acts as the first responder and primary knowledge holder. Traditional leader, don't forget that traditional leaders is also play a vital role on CBDRM. They are, as a cultural anchors, play an essential role in mobilizing participation and maintaining social cohesion. The local Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Nasional, also Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Daerah, and village administration provide institutional frameworks, support also the resources. Meanwhile, NGO, university, research partners bring a technical expertise and innovation. Like what we did like this afternoon. Private sectors, non-agency practitioner, academic are involved in one seminar talking about this is also one step up to the community. Together, these stakeholders form a collaborative network that will underpin resilient coastal societies from top to down, down to top. At the heart of community-based disaster risk management approach are the people themselves. Communities are not merely recipients for assistance, but the first responder and primary holders of local knowledge. Within these communities, traditional leaders occupy a central position as cultural anchors and moral authorities. Their leadership and legitimacy within customary systems enable them to mobilize participation and sustain social cohesion. The role of local government institutions, particularly agencies such as the Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Nasional or BPBN or Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Daerah and village administration is equally critical. These institutions provide the formal frameworks. Meanwhile, non-governmental organizations, or we can call it NGOs, universities and research institutions play a transformative role by contributing technical expertise, training, and innovation. They often act as facilitators who translate scientific data into accessible information for local communities, strengthening local capacity through participatory training, simulation exercises, and the introduction of risk mapping technologies. Academic institutions, in particular, contribute by conducting evidence-based research that informs both local and policymakers. The private sector is also play a pivotal role, also make ensure the long-term sustainability of CBDRM initiative through transfer and infrastructure support. The aim adds continuity beyond short-term projects and foster innovation through partnership in early warning system. Next slide, please. We will talk about tools and methods in CBDRM. It is a continuous step framework to be a community resilience in a coastal area. Can you please move slide, please? Yeah. As you can see on there, the next figure presented by Theophil Bongar's lab in 2020 compares two governance types, infrastructure-based and integrated approaches. While you can see on the blue line, infrastructure-based solution focus on technology, not the next one, tools and methods, please. That pictures is important, guys, because it compares two types of supporting agencies. Can you please back to the previous slide? Yeah. You can see on the screen that the picture tells everything about compares two big support system against governance and infrastructure based. While infrastructure-based solution focus on technology, as you can see on the bottom, integrates include broader social and economical considerations. The study concludes that the more inclusive the adaptation response, the wider its spatial and institutional scope must be. So the more deeply we are involved, so the wider thing that we can solve. In other words, coastal resilience cannot really rely solely on engineering itself. It must also be grounded in governance, social, economic, culture, gender, and building information, early warning system, community participation. Let me tell you three best practices in a community disaster resilience. Next slide. This is the first best practice that I found throughout the UN nation disaster agencies. Can you please move to the next slide?
I'm
Best
sorry,
practice.
Dorothy. 5 minutes later, your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I can move faster. So a good example you can see on the best practice one in community-led mangrove restoration projects demonstrated by Madeline McSherry in 2023. Next slide, please. Best practice two. Can you see the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Best practice two show us the local evacuation planning. Next slide. Best practices two. Okay. You can see the picture of the best practices too. They are doing local evacuation planning. Another compelling example is found in Petong, Thailand, as a co-created evacuation routes and after the 2004 tsunamis that our keynote speaker before explained. Involving the community in planning and rules authorities increase the public awareness. The last best practice is about gender and youth inclusion. Next slide. On the next slide, we can talk about best practice three. We are talking about gender and youth inclusion. They are have experiences reveal enhance the success of CBDRM. Next slide, please. Can you please move to the next slide? Okay. Now, you can see on the picture that the involve of gender and youth inclusion are contribute to the innovation energy, inclusivity on disaster planning leads to stronger and more resilient communities. Next slide, please. So we are facing the challenges and barriers throughout the CBDRM itself, despite the progress. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. CBDRM faces several obstacles, so I can move faster. Communities often have limited resources and technical capacity, policy coordination between local and national levels. Next slide, please. And future direction, looking ahead for strategic direction stand out. First is strengthening community. Next slide, please. Future direction. Next slide. Strengthening community capacity and leadership enhances ownership and readiness. Second is creating scientific data. Third is promoting ecosystem. Next slide, please. Future direction. Next slide. Can you please move to the next slide? Okay. This is one the last slide is I will present today. So looking ahead for the strategic, first is strengthening community capacity and leadership enhances ownership and readiness. Second one is integrating scientific data. Third one, promoting ecosystem-based adaptation. Finally, building multi-stakeholder partnership ensures continuity and shared responsibility. Next slide, please. So the last one is next slide, please. Can we move to the last slide, please? Next slide. Next slide, please. Can you move to the next slide? Untuk pindah ke slide berikutnya, tolong. Terima kasih. No, before thank you. Before thank you, we are talking about the building and maintaining multi-sector. So, and collaboration between communities, government, and NGOs, the private sector. Let me emphasize that disaster preparedness is most effective. The community itself becomes the first line of defense. So we are here to be the first line of defense, not only for coastal area, but also in the land area. A framework facilitate this environment, but as a scholar and practitioners, our role is make encouragement more higher, and but not only be a philosophy, but also empower our knowledge and technology to be what we are defenses as a communities area. So last one, what I can see that we have to know that engaging to be a community not only for coastal area, we can be more resilient for. Okay, thank you for your attention. I think I have one quotation that we have to read, and we have to remember never wherever we are, because disaster preparedness is most effective when the community itself becomes the first line of defense. Thank you for the opportunity, and have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Evi, for the informative and inspiring session about the coastal area in community-based disaster. It's very complete presentation, I think. Okay, thank you, Dr. Evi. And then next we will proceed with Dr. Jonathan Lassa, MPP, who will present tsunami mechanism, early sign, and mitigation strategies. Before he begin, I will briefly to read his profile. Can anyone help to share the GV? Okay. Okay, Dr. J. Lassa, he's a senior disaster risk scientist. Current affiliationnya Senior Scientific Disaster Art Scientist in New Zealand, Institute of Georgia and Nuclear Science, New Zealand, Senior Research Fellow. He's at Faculty of Art and Society, Charles Darwin University, Australia. And then he's Center of Traditional Security Student at Sajaratma School of International Studies, Nanyang Technology. His research specialization, disaster policy, institution and government, climate change adaptation, risk and vulnerability assessment, international development, disaster risk, food and livelihood system, social network analysis, humanities operational. His professional experience, summary-nya Dr. Jonathan specialist in the Police Institute and Polycentric Government of Climate Change, Mitigation and Adaptation, Disaster Risk and Environment Management. His expertise also spans livelihood system, social network analysis, and the policy making process. He has published over 115 peer review article, book chapter, and research report. In additional, he has written more than 115 commentaries and op-eds for national and international outlets, including The Conversation, over the past 15 years. His current research activities include institutional dimension of climate finance, climate change education, adaptive social protective, and the human dimension of multi-hazard early warning system, just transition of energy future and social justice. He had been living and working in the future countries like Indonesia, UK, German, USA, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. So many experience. This is the example currently management products in 2025 until 2026. SPC PMA support project National Rapid Emergency Team introduction training of 4 Solomon Island government, and then the non-economic loss and damage in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and many more experience. Academic qualification, 2010, PhD, Disaster Risk Government, University of Bonn, German, and 2007 till 2008, grant certificate on interdisciplines development of social science, ZEF Uni Bonn. And then his recent professional position had 2024 until present, senior disaster risk scientist, GNC scientist in ESNZ, and then many output of the proposal and book he has. Okay, that's all CV about Dr. Jonathan. Hello, Dr. Jonathan. Good afternoon. Are you in there?
Ya, selamat siang, sore.
Okay, Dr. Jonathan. Thank you for joining to us. And then your time is 30 minutes in presentation. This floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Rodi. Thank you, Pak Bertan, for inviting me. Thank you, team behind this seminar. Hello, everyone. It's pleased to see you here. Yes, I'm Jonathan. I'm originally from Timor Barat, from Kupang. Tsunami is something that is very personal to me because the 1992 tsunamis in Flores is one of the reasons why I studied disaster mitigation. Since 1994, my university in Kupang started a research center on tsunami mitigation, disaster mitigation in general, so mainly focus on earthquake mitigation or seismic mitigation. And that leads me to write about seismic design of structure when I did my undergrad back in, by now, it's already like more than 25 years ago. And then tsunamis, I went to study my PhD on tsunami early warning system. Initially, I was about to write about tsunami policies of Indonesia, but that is after the Indian Ocean tsunami 2024. So I went back from my study in UK, and then I went to Aceh to work in disaster recovery process like Pak Daniel. So I spent 2 years in Aceh, and then I went to study PhD. I joined Tsunami Indonesia, sorry, German Indonesia Tsunami Early Warning System Project, GTS. And then after the second year, I convinced my PhD supervisor that I wanted to change the topic because there are many people back in time trying to study tsunamis. So I ended up looking at disasters beyond tsunamis, beyond earthquakes, to study more kind of multi-hazard risk governance. So I come from civil engineering. So when going back in time, civil engineering students need to study irrigation 1, irrigation 2, irrigation 3, and most of the time you design a flood, anticipating how can we make use of the runoff water, or surface runoff water. And also we studied a lot of, we also studied urban drainage, hydrology, hydraulics. So a lot of civil engineering courses are pretty much connected to disaster risk reduction, like river engineering, coastal engineering, and so on. Right. So today I'm pretty happy to share the space to provide some kind of overview of very basic understanding about tsunamis. So the topic will be, what is that? I think most of you might have an idea about what is tsunamis and how does a tsunami occur, the impact, how scientists model tsunamis, and how can we minimize the impact. Right. So my slide, yeah. So what is a tsunami? It's a series of extreme long waves that involve the whole depth of ocean. If you have a glass on your table and you drop something inside, you will see a splash, and then the waves will kind of travel throughout your glass. That's kind of a tsunami in a nutshell. So if you wanted to draw a conclusion from that illustration, tsunami is caused by a sudden displacement of water, and it could be caused by, the most extreme way is meteor strike, and that is kind of the history behind the disappear of dinosaurs. Hopefully we will no longer experience that, but you never know. There is also a phenomena around, the most common one is the uplift of the seafloor, and that will trigger an earthquake, and because of that there will be a displacement of water. But submarine landslide could also trigger it. Sometimes earthquakes trigger landslide, and that might be the case of the tsunami in Central Sulawesi in Palu. I had a chance to also visit Palu after the tsunamis. Also, it could be rock falling, sliding into the seawater. There are cases like that, especially in my place in Flores. There used to be a case back in 1970s. Also, submarine volcano eruption could also trigger big tsunamis, like the case of Tonga tsunamis back in, I think, a few years ago. Many of my colleagues at Earth Science New Zealand, back in time it was called Geology and Nuclear Sciences New Zealand. They involve in understanding about the causal mechanism and so on. So I use some of their slides in my presentation. Yeah, so just to give you an idea that tsunami can travel very far, and it can travel also fast, like 700 kilometers an hour in the open ocean, and it slows down when it reaches the coastline. And it can be a series of waves lasting for hours, can be more than 6, 8, 10 hours. And their first wave is not always the largest. So I think tsunami impact, since you are all probably, I assume most of you are from Indonesia or live in Indonesia, you must already have an idea about the tsunami impact. So I don't need to convince you that tsunami is very dangerous if you cannot manage. You can lose your house, you can lose your families. In Aceh, somehow people call it natural hazard or natural disasters, but in many villages, women and children die more compared to men for many reasons. One is livelihood systems. But the second is also cultural because women remains tied, to their instinct as a mother. They always going back home to pick up their kids to make sure that their kids are safe and secure. And because of that, many are caught in tsunamis. And most of the time they get killed because of the debris from the tsunamis. So I think after Indian Ocean tsunamis 2004, we have seen a lot of videos. I think many people post videos how debris could kill you if you are caught in the middle of it. Or probably you're also drowned by the water to the shore. And even if you can swim, most of the time you will not survive. So tsunami can cause problems in infrastructure. So let's assume that after Indonesia got independent in 1945, and we can use time travel to imagine how Aceh also developed from 1970s, making use of the revenue from oil and so on, and built a lot of wealth and infrastructure, housing, and so on. And all of a sudden, all those infrastructure will be just ruined, and it takes years and years for the government and communities to put it back. So disasters like tsunamis, they could actually set you back to 30 years ago. So all the investment that is built for 50 years is just gone in one day. And then you have to take another 20 years, 30 years to rebuild that. And how fast you can rebuild that, it depends on government policy. In Japan, it takes 20 years for the government to think about how we could recover from tsunamis or earthquakes. In Indonesia, our government often use 3 years. So after 3 years, they're shifting into normal kind of development stage. And it's really up to you whether you will be able to recover your wealth lost in the tsunamis. Most of the time, we didn't have a strategy to make it more than 20 years kind of development policy. So it's really up to your younger generation to think about how can we help government and future governments and future politicians understand that for disaster recovery, you need more than 3 years. You need probably 10 years planning. You need probably even more like 20 years. The Japanese back in 1995, some port like Kobe, they were like number 5 in the world in terms of traffics and also the containers volumes and so on. Fast forward into 20 years from 30 years by now. I think they realized that they cannot fully recover. And now they are ranked probably below number 50. So you can see how tsunamis and earthquakes could actually set you back and you can lose your competitiveness in the market as well. And that is because infrastructure needs to be designed to face this kind of risk. So after 20 years, I think the government in Japan is still thinking whether they need to continue recovery or probably they need to shifting gear to be like more developed and then let's move on. That's one of the strategy. So how to model the tsunamis? I think most of the cases we try to establish. So modeling is a practice where you try to mimic or you try to copy how their reality works, right? So I think scientists. So we have a tsunami scientist in my office in Wellington. There is also one famous Indonesian tsunami scientist. His name is Aditya Guzman. I think I used some of his slides in this presentation as well. So, but just to be frank with you, so we use Riscape as kind of an open access solver for modelers or disaster practitioners to be able to map the risk of tsunamis. But in the US, they call it HAZUS, but there are 50 of more than 50 tools like this. Some are better than others. In New Zealand, we try to use Riscape. And over the last, let's say, 40 years, there's a risk modeling called risk equals hazards time exposure times vulnerability. So the science behind it is no longer new. It's already 30 years. But to be frank with you, some of the government didn't even reach at this level. Or some people still call tsunami as disasters. From a tsunami becoming a disaster, there's always a distance. So it depends on how you manage your exposure, how you manage your vulnerability, and then sometimes we put consequences. So models are not realities, but models are developed to mimic and getting as close as possible to be kind of real. So for example, we know that tsunami is a natural phenomenon, but it doesn't have to kill people as long as you know how to plan by minimizing exposure. So not to build, let's say, housing very close to the coast if the coast is very flat. Or if you wanted to stay there, because many communities in Indonesia have been trying to adapt to tsunamis, they build kind of stage housing. So that could survive if the tsunami is not that strong and not that high. So, and this is some of the colleagues at my office try to help the government of Vanuatu to provide some kind of illustration how you map hazards. So this is, for example, how you try to estimate. And I think of the last 30, 40 years, I think the science of tsunami is getting better. I think some of my colleagues are trying to recruit future scientists from Indonesia to be a leader in this field, because we suffer from tsunamis, or our community suffer from tsunamis. And I think it's also necessary for us to think about that at least some of the global experts around this needs to also come from Indonesia. But just keep in mind that expertise around tsunami doesn't have to mean the modelers of tsunamis like this, but we also will be very grateful to see if there are younger Indonesians, younger students that wanted to study tsunamis from end to end. So this is one way of looking at the hazard. So hazard here is the tsunami heights. So for example, above 5, it will be like all red and so on. If it is from 0 to 0.5, then it's blue. If it is, so you will see some of the areas that are highly likely to be swept away in this kind of context. And we can also invite some of the scientists to also provide this kind of analysis using their techniques. I think we have some colleagues at the Bandung Institute of Technology as well who are quite good at this. And also colleagues from TDMRC in Banda Aceh. I think they are quite progressive also in this space. And there are a few younger generations that started to study tsunami modeling. And I think for the next 20, 30 years, we expect more Indonesian to also study tsunamis. So the next part is exposure. That is where you need to, so one of the variables of exposure is the positioning of the buildings and how you try to overlay with the hazard. And you will notice places or buildings that will be more likely to be affected by those waves. And for sure, based on that information, you can establish some kind of damage estimate if the hypothetical tsunami occurs, and then which part of the building could be totally washed away, which one could be suffering from major hazard. And maybe there are buildings that might stand against those, and probably because of the exposure is less and so on. So I think this is how tsunami scientists try to also help with disaster planners. So they can work together to produce this kind of information. And you could also create, some of my colleagues also produce this kind of tsunami Indonesian map, building damage state, and pinning down, the unit is communities or council, or in Indonesia we call it probably village or kecamatan. So you can create this kind of tabulated table showing potential loss, and if politicians need information around investment going forward to the future, we could probably provide some numbers that if you don't invest right now, you're going to lose probably 16 billions, for example. But if you wanted to invest, probably we lose less. That's so another layers of this is using cost and benefit analysis, but I'm not providing those information today. So many of my colleagues at my office, they are quite good at this, and usually when it comes to tsunami planning, it's becoming like multidisciplinary team. So social scientists will work with tsunami scientists, planning scientists will work with social science and tsunami scientists to understand about how can we work together to anticipate the tsunamis coming. One of the terminology that you need to think is the tsunami travel time or tsunami arrival time. If you're very close to the coast, it could be in minutes if the earthquake is local earthquakes. But sometimes it can be longer than that. The arrival information will be in New Zealand, it comes from emergency, we call it NEMA. But it's the, we have our office also produce the tsunami information because I think we are kind of PMKG as well, and combining geo hazard monitoring system, and then also now we are also monitors weather information as well. So for example, for decision making, this is very rough, and this is taken from some of my colleagues' presentation, but basically they took it also from tsunami catalogs 2021, because in New Zealand we try to establish facts around tsunami scenarios, and there are catalogs of scenarios where I think local governments can also benefit from there, and asking the question, if that scenario happens, one of the worst scenarios is 8.7 earthquakes, that is probably likely to happen around between South and North New Zealand. There is a specific website dedicated just to anticipate those kind of big events. And in Indonesia, I think if you read Kompas or national newspaper, there have been big kind of advocacy around whether we need to wait for the properly prepare against the potential tsunami coming from the um, south of Java, for example. So there are risks hidden because there is potential large earthquakes that could one day create a big impact around South Java Sea, I think, South Java coast. I think probably Irwan will provide more information around that. One of the questions, how to minimize the impact. Well, one of the idea is to define evacuation zones, and probably you need to also work with the government to think about whether there are buildings like supermarket that can be used or can have dual function as vertical evacuation. After Indian Ocean tsunami, after Aceh, I think there are plenty of evacuation buildings. But I think most of the time during the drills, I think people realize that those buildings are, it's not because they are not up to standard, but they are locked most of the time. Sometimes local people create the narrative, if you don't lock the vertical evacuation, I mean the building, tsunami evacuation building, the youngsters like you students, university students will have like pacaran di bangunan itu, dan kemudian because of that people lock it down. But the problem is if you lock it down, one day when the tsunami happens, people cannot even evacuate to that place. So there is a lot of social issues around vertical tsunami evacuations in Indonesia. And I think if you wanted to study that, how engineering, science, and then social problems interact, how can we solve this problem? Helping governments think about this. Sometimes most of the building are also not maintained. Banyak kambing-kambing berseliweran di bangunan-bangunan ini. And over time, maintenance is also one problem. So my colleagues who studied some of this building are afraid that maybe the quality of the building will be deteriorating in 20 years. So whenever earthquake happen at that time, the building probably also collapse because of the poor maintenance.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jonathan, you
Yeah.
are 5 minutes later.
Yeah, thank you. So it means that I'm already over time. So one of the solution is land use planning. Also, we could create map for evacuation. The other solution is tsunami early warning systems. I think we have enough use in Indonesia. You could probably study more about how can Indonesia build its tsunami early warning systems. So never assume that it's always perfect, but also never afraid to provide inputs. And one of the best ways to study that. Also, there are also engineering approach to create kind of blocking or steering, or to, trying to manipulate the run up or probably vertical evacuation building like this one. One way is also creating this kind of end-to-end early warning system. I think Indonesia have been trying to do this at least since 2012. I think at the moment we have a new version of this. And public education is also a big problem. One of the approaches could be community-based disaster management, like the previous Ibu speakers talk about. But this is one example of having tsunami hazard plan, and you can probably plan for 100-year scenario or 1,000-year scenario. So it's not about just having one map that fits all, but you can actually design that for some part of the cities in your place, you can probably pick up the tsunami scenarios that could probably suit for you. So some of the places that might be exposed to tsunami, maybe they are better used for parks or city parks, but they're not necessarily good for settlements. At the moment, I think my colleagues at GNS, especially Aditya Guzman, is trying to update the national tsunami hazard model, and with that, they wanted to go deeper into how can we bring the tsunami science into planning, and the planning needs to be details. It needs to anticipate more scenarios, and I think I always one day we could probably work with this. At the moment, I think Aditya is trying to do this kind of work with BMKG and also ITB Bandung and a few colleagues also probably from different research centers. That is all of my presentation. Thank you so much, Pak. So we cannot hear you, Pauli.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jonathan, for the experience and the excellent presentation about the tsunami. Okay. Maybe for then, if okay, for ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, you can chat in the Zoom chat the question. Okay, final and not last speaker, but certainly not the least. Professor Dr. Irwanto Meliano, STMSG, will drive a presentation and title Introduction to Coastal Hazard Types and Characteristics. Okay. Before we begin, allow me to share a brief introduction of Professor Irwan. Okay. Okay. Anyone can share the CV of Professor Irwan? Okay. Professor Irwan Meliano, his professional experience in 2025 until now, he Vice Rector of Academy and Student Affairs in Institut Teknologi Bandung or ITB. In 2020 until 2025, he's Dean Faculty of Art, Science, and Technology, ITB. 2010 until now, head of the GOTSI Working Group Indonesian Earthquake Map or NWL team, Ministry of Public Works. 2015 until 2020, Secretary Institute of Research and Community Service, ITB. And then 2018 until 2020, Head Center of Excellence for Earthquake Science and Technology, ITB. Education, he's Bachelor of Engineering Geodesi Institusi Teknologi Bandung, and 2003 Master of Science in Art Science Nagoya University, Japan. 2006 Doctor of Science in Art Science in Nagoya, Japan. His expertise seismic hazard or his analysis earthquake, God say disaster risk financing and our system introduction. His award first best student presentation in Geodetic Society of Japan from meeting 2003. Contribution to Geopolitical Knowledge Indonesian Geophysical Association in 2012. Contribution of Geodesy and Geometric Development Indonesian Surveyor Association 2014. And then Research Award in Institusi Teknologi Bandung 2016. Indroyono Social Award in 5th International Conference of Indonesia Society of Remote Sensing 2019. Okay, this is the publication of Prof. Irwan. It's many publication. The last publication in 2025, automatic 3-dimension cadastral models of thought, right, and building base of the LEDM framework, ESPR International Journal of Geoinformation. Okay, that's all about the Professor Irwan. Professor Irwan, I hear you in there.
Yes, thank you, Bapak Audit, for your kind introductions. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very delighted to be part of this important meeting. Okay, shall I start now? Or?
Yes, Prof, you can start now. Your
Okay.
time is 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As already mentioned, that I'm Irwan Melano. I'm very happy and delighted to be part of these important discussions. Today, I'd like to share information related to coastal hazard Indonesia. The topics that I choose is safeguarding Indonesians' economic futures against coastal hazard. Please move to the next slide. Well, as already introduced by the moderators, I'm Irwan Melano. Currently, I'm the Vice Rector for Academics and Student Affairs of ITB. Most of my career, I've been doing the topics related to volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and recently I also put serious attentions into disaster risk financings, the topics that combines disasters, hazard, risk modeling with the financial calculations. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Well, why coastal hazard is a very okay. I'm going to divide my talk into 4 different sections. The first one is why studying coastal hazard is a very important topic for a country like Indonesia. And the second topics I'll be discussing about one of the examples that we had 7 years ago, the sudden shock, the 2018 Palu tsunami. And after that, I'm going to share the information about what I call as a creeping crisis. There are 2 creeping crises in Indonesia. The first one is sea level rise, and the second one is land subsidence. And finally, I'm going to bring all of you to the idea of the synthesis and call to actions, a new collaborative paradigms. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to explain why it is very important to study the coastal hazard in Indonesia. It's a map of Indonesia, and the coastal length of Indonesia is almost 100,000 kilometers. And we have more than 17,000 islands. And it is very important to note that there are more than 65 millions of Indonesians who live along the coastal area Indonesia. They are the one who very vulnerable to the coastal hazard Indonesia. when I mention coastal hazard, it is not only the extreme wave, not only not only tsunami, but also the flooding. We have an evidence of serious the extensions of flooding area in the northern part of Java Islands. Please move to the next slides. In the next slide, I'm going to explain about the extreme wave. We have done several modelings by using the probabilistic models. We use the wave models together with the winds model, and finally, now we understand the extreme wave in the coastal area of Indonesia. You may, from the colors that you can see that in some part of Indonesia, for example, in the northern part of Lombok, and also in the northern part of eastern Indonesia, Nusa Tenggara Barat, Nusa Tenggara Timur, we have an evidence of the extreme wave that higher than 5 meters. We use the 25 years probabilistic models, and let's move to the next slide. In the next slide, we change the periods of the probabilistic into longer periods. And by using the longer periods of hazard, please try to move to the next slide. And if I change to the 100 years, then you can see that along the southern coast of Java Islands or the west coast of Sumatra, we have a very serious problem of the extreme wave. Some of wave in that area exceeded 5 meters, which is that it may cause high vulnerability to the area living in the coastal zone in the southern part of Java Islands and some small islands in the eastern part of Indonesia. Please move to the next slide. And then why coastal hazard is very important. We already did the calculations of economic losses due to the several disasters. As you can see that the earthquake and tsunami is another kind of coastal hazard, and also wave actions. Wave action is among top 10 cause of economic losses in terms of the disaster. The number one is earthquake and tsunami exceed $400 million per year. So the economic losses due to the earthquake and tsunami is very significant for Indonesia. And for the wave, that the model that I already explained earlier, the economic losses exceed $0.65 million per year. Let's move to the next slide. So having a good understanding of the coastal hazard in Indonesia is very important. And I'm going to share another example of the coastal hazard, the sudden shock, the 2018 Palu tsunami. The hazard in the coastal area of Palu consists of several hazards. The first one is the ground shaking. The second one is the tsunami. The third one is the coastal slope failures. So due to the very strong ground shaking, some coastal area, the coastal zone experience slope failures. And another hazard is liquefaction or flow slide. The local people mention it as a nalodo. And another hazard which is which is very important to mention, is surface fault rupture. Some buildings can survive the ground shaking, but there are no structures that can survive the surface ruptures. So if a house um, um, experience surface fault rupture, the house will destroy. And the impact of these disasters, almost 5,000 people killed, over 60,000 household damaged, and more than 200,000 people displaced from their hometown. And please move to the next slide. So studying Palu earthquakes as an example of a coastal hazard is very important. And the ground shaking is very strong. The intensity of the ground shaking is 0.7 G. 0.7 G is a scale of the gravity acceleration. So just to, if you are familiar with the earthquakes, just to give you an overview how strong is 0.7 G. If you ever heard about the Yogyakarta earthquakes in 2006, the shaking around Bantul area during the Yogyakarta earthquakes is 0.3 G. So the shaking is double, 2 times stronger than Yogyakarta earthquakes. And the surface ruptures, the length of surface ruptures is more than 100 kilometers, and it ruptured 2.5 meters. And the tsunami height up to 6 to 11 meters. And and most important things is the arrival time. The arrival time of a tsunami is only 3 minutes after the earthquakes. So it's very hard for people to evacuate because the duration is very short. And the last hazard is the liquefactions. In Petobo area, 180 hectares were shifted. So you can imagine suddenly 180 hectares land become liquid. So no housing, no infrastructures can survive if the land suddenly becomes liquid due to the liquefactions. And please move to the next slides. In Balaroa, it's almost 50 hectares in the area experience liquefaction. And another problem in the coastal area of Palu, in the first 3 days, the power went out completely. So you can imagine along the coastline, the first 3 days, and there's a big city in the coastline, the Palu city. The first 3 days, the power went out completely. No electricity means no internet. So how many hours you can survive without internet? How many hours you can survive without checking your WhatsApp message or opening your Instagram or updating your TikTok? So 3 days, no electricity. Power went out completely. And the first weeks of electricity, the first weeks, 60% electricity recovered. So only 65%. And 2 weeks, 90% recovers. And damage to the water distributions, no electricity, no waters, no gasolines. So it's very serious. Please move to the next slide. It means there is no money as well because no electricity, no waters, no gasoline. This is the figures. Well, it's very hard to see the animations since maybe since I send the PDF file. So next time in the animation, you can see that this area suddenly the area 180 hectares suddenly become liquid. It's become a kind of a lake because of the liquefaction. The land become water, and no infrastructure, no houses, no school, no hospital can survive if the land becomes liquid. Please move to the next slides. And at least there are two areas that experience a very high, very significant liquefaction. And this one, I also like to show the animations, but I think you cannot see the animations. But the thing that I would like to show you that the the most important ones, there are two things. The first one is the height of the tsunami. In this particular coastal area, the height of the tsunami is more than 6 meters. In some area, higher than 10 meters. And the second important thing is the times, the arrival times. So the tsunami arrived faster than 3 minutes. So you cannot, it's very hard to imagine. So if you have the warning system, there is no such warning system that can give you warning faster than 1 minute or maybe faster than 2 minutes. It takes time to calculate the magnitude of the earthquakes. It takes time to estimate the travel times of the tsunami. It takes time to give the warning. So 3 minutes is not enough to give the warning for the tsunami. And that's the thing that happens in the coastal area of Palu. Please move to the next slide. And then the second one is the surface rupture, as I mentioned earlier. And suddenly the land divided into two parts. The one in the west moved to the north, and the one in the south moved to the south. The one in the east moved to the north, and the one in the west moved to the south. And this is the surface rupture. And suddenly the surface ruptures, 5 meters rupture, broke into two pieces. And no infrastructure can survive if the land broke into two pieces. So it's very important to understand the surface rupture in the coastal area. Please move to the next slides. And the movement is not only horizontal, we also find an evidence of the vertical movement. And then it is very interesting to note, as an earthquake scientist, I need to share with you that the rupture length is 130 kilometers. And the duration is very fast, only 25 to 30 seconds. So it's very fast. So some scientists say this is what we call a super shear. The average rupture velocity is 5 kilometers per second. So it's very fast. The normal earthquake is 2 kilometers per second. This earthquake is faster than normal earthquakes. Please move to the next slide. So studying the Palu earthquake is an example of the coastal hazard is very important. Please allow me to move to the next part of my talk is the creeping crisis. The slow crisis. The first one is the sea level rise. According to the data, Indonesian sea level is rising 4 millimeters per year, and this is surprising the global average. The global average is only 2 millimeters per year, but Indonesia it reached because we are located in the we are located near the equator. So the velocity of sea level rise in Indonesia is about 4 millimeters per year, and you can see that the impact of sea level rise in some area the sea level rise is exceed 10 millimeters per year, and I like to highlight why sea level rise is very important. we have several small islands. So many small islands will be located below sea level. See, if the sea level rise constantly rising, and we lost 92 outmost islands in Indonesia. So it's very important to do the adaptation and mitigations to safeguard the coastal region's ecosystem and maritime sovereignty of Indonesia. Please move to the next slide. So the issue of the creeping crisis is the first one is the sea level rise. And this is a paper we just published 2 years ago, published in Nature. So the second creeping crisis in Indonesia is the land subsidence. So it is a kind of double disaster. The sea level rises, but the land is subsiding. And based on the data, by using the GNS data, it is published in Nature. Along the coastline of Indonesia, we have a significance based on the data. We have an evidence of the significant land subsidence. For example, in Semarang, the scale of the land subsidence exceed 9 millimeter per year. So we have the sea level rise, and also at the same time we have the land subsidence. So it's a double disaster. That's the reason why I call it creeping crisis in the coastal zones. So it's very important to put very serious attention to this kind of disaster, to this kind of hazard. Please move to the next slides. So I'd like to call to action a new collaborative paradigms. Me as a great geoscientist, we model the hazard. We identify the risk zones. Sometimes we try to improve the early warning system, like for tsunamis. But also we need the help from engineers and urban planners. They are the one who design an adaptive infrastructure. And adaptive infrastructure not just walls, but water retention areas, regulations that limit groundwater extractions. We also need a help from economists, data scientists to quantify the true cost of inactions, the benefit of investments, model the economic impacts using different adaptation strategies. We also need the help of social scientists and also community leaders to ensure solutions are equitable and also culturally acceptable and involve the local knowledge. And also we need to help from medical doctors. The medical doctors is a critical link that ensure health dimension is integrated into all stages of coastal disaster risk management. And please move to the next slide. So collaborative programs is a very important. So I'm a person who believe of multi-hazard and multi-stakeholders collaborative actions. So as a closing remarks, I like to highlight 2 points. From the sudden shock of Palu earthquakes into the creeping disaster, double disaster, land subsidence, and sea level rise, Indonesia need to do, or coastal countries need to do a strategic investment in resilience coastal area. It is not an expense, but it is investment. And the second remark is let us move from the acting to disaster to building resilience. Let us bring our discipline together, as I mentioned earlier, contributions of the economy, social scientists, medical doctors, earth scientists, local community is very important. Let us bring our discipline together, not just in the classroom, but in the field, and to create a better policy for disaster risk reductions. Thank you for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for
Thank
the
you.
presentation. It's very important and very interesting for the presentation. Okay. Okay, that's all our speaker. Thank you to all our speaker for their outstanding and insightful presentation. And now we have in Q&A session. We have a question in chat box. Let's see.
A chat box, okay.
Okay, the question from Mr. Humam. The question for address from Mr. Burton. Assalamualaikum. I would like to ask Mr. Burton, how does the clinic concept of disaster management help ensure and continuous process of preparedness, response, and recovery? That's question for Mr. Burton. Mr. Burton, are you in there?
Pak Dr. Odi,
Yes.
yeah, I take Pak Berton answer.
Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah, because he just told me to take the question.
Okay.
Yeah. Disaster management cyclic is a continuum process. Yeah. There is a model called expand and construct model. It means in pre-disaster, the majority is disaster risk reduction action. And then during disaster response or disaster emergency, still there is a disaster risk reduction, but in the small level, but more on response activities. And then move to the post-disaster or recovery, still there is a response capabilities and then risk reduction capabilities, but more on recovery process. So it means the cycles is not fragmented, but a continuum process. They call it expand and contract model. I think this is the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bagus. Okay, is it clear for Mr. Human, I think? Okay, anyway, next to the next question from Miss Siva. Good afternoon, Dr. M. Siva. I would ask to Miss Effie. Why is community participant crucial for disaster risk management in coastal area, and how does combining science with traditional knowledge strengthen CBDRM? Okay, this question for Miss Effie. Miss Effie, are you in there? Miss Effie. Okay, I think Miss Effie is out from Zoom. Okay. Miss Shiva, I think this question I will share to Miss Effie for the next time, and I will share to you the answer of this question. Any question for another speaker? Okay, this is a question for Prof. Irwan. Good afternoon, Prof. I'm Tias. I'd like to ask to Prof. Irwan, how has Prof. Irwan Meliano's expertise in GOTSI and systemic hazard analysis advanced Indonesian effort in earthquake risk assessment and mitigation? What do his recent publications suggest about the integration of geospatial technology and sustainability in natural disaster and management? Prof. Irwan, this question for you.
Okay, please allow me to understand the questions. So you're asking me what is my role in disaster management? Okay. Well, thank you for the questions. Well, for the last 25 years, I've been working on the earthquakes hazard. I'm the leaders. So one of the leaders of uh, seismic updating the seismic map of Indonesia. If you are familiar with the SNI, SNE, so there are several kind of SNI or SNE. For example, for health maps, SNI for many things. And I'm the one who produced the SNI for the earthquakes, for the earthquake resistance, infrastructures. And we update the ground shakings in every areas in Indonesia. So by doing so, by having the information of the seismic hazard in every point in Indonesia, then we can design the earthquake resistant infrastructures. So let's say if you want to build hospitals, then you have to make sure that the quality of your hospital is good enough that can resist any kind of disaster and that can resist the earthquakes. So if your area is earthquakes prone zone, it doesn't mean you cannot build the hospital. Of course, you can build the hospital, but you have to build this hospital stronger than the future earthquakes. So the question is how we know how strong is the future earthquakes. That's my job. My job is to calculate the intensity, the magnitudes, the acceleration of the future earthquakes. I hope I answer your questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. I think it's very clear for the question. Okay. And the last question for the session from Mr. Raihan. The question for Dr. Jonathan. The question is, how does the research on climate change adaptation and disaster government contribute to building community resilience in South Asia? And then the second question is, based on your professional experience, what role does interdiscipline and participant research play in developing effectively disaster risk reduction policy? Okay, Dr. Jonathan.
Thank you, Pauli. Thank you, Ibu Rahma Safira. I think I'll answer the last question. How interdisciplinary and participatory research help inform better disaster risk reduction policy. The real world is messy. And the real world is there are many players coming from different backgrounds, different disciplines. And for a very long time, if there is an earthquake happen, the normal things that you will see in the media is the media will call somebody from BMKG or from natural hazard science to tell about the earthquakes, why it happens, where it happens, what is the scale, and so on. If you times up 100 of events in 20 years, it's like probably 1,000 or more repetitive patterns like that. It's like, I call it like you have a snake, and then after somebody get bitten by snakes, you call a snake expert, and then they will tell you the stories, and for a very long time, since Indonesia has many snakes, you have thousands of snakes and many press briefing around snakes. And the weakness of this approach is you never spend time to talk to the communities. How can we build a better preparation against, snakes phenomenon? I mean, this is an illustration and kind of a little bit cynical here. I think the solution towards some of these problems from the policy side for a very long time is simply based on single disciplinary approach. Politicians and I think policymakers, they are biased towards certain type of knowledge. If you come from engineering or technology or science, you're more listen. I mean, people have the tendency to listen more to those people rather than calling a sociologist, for example. So yeah, I think this is a big issue, and I think going forward to the next 20 years, we'll always have this problem. Unless new generation of policymakers or scientists becoming aware, like Irwan, who believes in multidisciplinary approach. So we need new generation of scientists who believe in the strength of every disciplines. Because the world is so complex, the problem is complex, and they cannot be solved by a single disciplinary approach. That's one. And the second question, I think, is how research on climate change adaptation and disaster governance contribute to resilience. Well, there are a lot of things that we don't know. I think Iran just presented around some evidence around coastal hazard. Well, a little bit closer to the coastal hazard is the ocean problems. One is the ocean acidification. Indonesia, we have plenty of small islands, plenty of fissures. One of the impact of climate change is that the ocean will be more acidic. Will be like kadar keasaman lautnya makin tinggi. So ocean acidification is one of the problems, and the implication for that is that you will have less fish population, or fish will be migrating to somewhere. And there is a global modeling around fish pattern around the world. And if you look at some of the models, I think many Southeast Asian waters will be also warmer, meaning that the fish will be also migrated. And the coast, fish population around the coast will be also going into the deeper water. Now, if fish going to deeper water, many small fishers, they don't have the technology, they don't have the boats that can go to the deeper water. So this is just one example for maritime country like Indonesia. For land-based risk, I think we have listened a lot today. For ocean acidification is one problem, and coral bleaching is another one. And there are heaps of details around that is also quite scary. There is marine heat waves that probably everyone didn't cover today. Marine heat waves also cause a lot of problems. And some of these risks are not even understood yet, unless some of the future generation, like students here, are happy to take some of this responsibility, then we could probably understand more about the risk. So we call it climate change is game changer. How much it will cost us, you never know. It can go to the ocean, to the coast, to the land. I think it's quite complex. So research certainly helps, but research alone doesn't solve the problem because you need to collaborate with different players. Scientists are often marginal. You look at the office, even like Pauri, you have to probably call on the one with bosses on the top. And when you wanted to talk to the politician, they might probably not always listen to you. First, they might not understand your language. And the second, they might probably feel like it's not priority. So you need different players too. And I think we need many champions in science, in university, in politics, in policymaking, in bureaucracy. NGOs to play a role in this conversation. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jonathan. Interesting question. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of today's webinar. On behalf of our organizers committee, I would like to express our deep appreciation to all distinguished speaker, participant, and committee members who have contributed to the success of the event. May we know knowledge and insight gained today strengthen our preparedness and resiliency in facing disaster, because truly resiliency begins with fitness. Okay, and the last, I'm Odi Faruzi, and it has been a great honor to serve your moderator today. We look forward to seeing you again at upcoming Jamboree in 2025. Stay safe, stay resilient, and keep wave of fitness strong. Now I'd like to hand the session back to our Master of Ceremony, Mr. Siva. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our moderator, Dr. Odi, and speaker for the informative and engaging discussion. Your insights are deeply appreciated. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now come to the end of our webinar. And before we officially close, we will have a short photo session as documentation of today's international webinar. So please, may I kindly ask everyone to please turn on your camera, and our documentation team will take several screenshots. Could the committee please take a photo?
Okay, slide 1. Slide 2. Slide 3. Last one.
Okay, thank you for the committee. Before we end, please don't forget to fill out the final attendance form, which will be shared in the chat box. Oh, maybe already in the chat box. So this is required to receive your certificate. And now, as we conclude, on behalf of the organizing committee, I extend our deepest appreciation to all speakers, moderator, and participants for making this event a success. We hope that the knowledge shared today will encourage stronger cooperation and readiness in facing future challenges. Thank you once again for joining us. And yeah, stay safe, stay resilient, and see you at the next Road to International Jamboree 2025 event. Have a wonderful afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For all.